This is the OBJ file that was in Mudbox, the one I painted on and did that sculpture on. So right now it's got a default shader on it. Okay, the Lambert default. And I've used 3 lights, the direct light, an ambient light, and sky dome light to illuminate it. So I found that I have the best luck. It's most efficient to light things before I put the shader on it, so I can evaluate the quality of the light and not have to wait for the software to calculate all the variables that come with the shader. So I've got, to me, a pretty successful. I've softened the light by increasing the angles, the angle value in the direct light. These are the values you can see there. So see, I've added the samples and the angle. Remember that angle value inside the direct light makes it have a soft value. Sky dome light, I've increased the samples a little bit more. But again, it's pretty minimal. It's only at 0.13. And in the area light, that's where that purple's coming from. It's relatively large, meaning the intensity is small. But remember with the area lights, the scale of the light. And you can see how big it is compared to the stomach. So that's how I got this. Now I'm going to try to add a shader to it. So I'm going to start with the AI standard surface shader, and I have one here called stomach. I've made some adjustments to it in the sense that I've mostly in terms of the specular. I've turned the weight of the specular down. I've made it rougher. Watch this little dot. If I make the roughness small, it gets more and more precise, or it gets smaller and it gets sharper as I increase the roughness to the point where it disappears even. So I'm going to leave the roughness here right around 0.3, I think. Okay. And let's put that stomach, I've named it, onto the stomach. Let's make sure I got it there. All right. So if we do a quick, we'll keep this. Let's do a quick render. And you can see the difference for now, the shine of the material. So even though that little dot was disappearing, maybe I might have made that roughness just even a little bigger. That's a little, it's nice, but it feels a little kind of plasticky to me. So I think I'll go back and just add, make that, increase that roughness a little bit. And then maybe we can see if I do a box right here. You can see how it's, again, it's disappeared basically on that side. So let's go back. Yeah, still a little too much. There you go. So we have light, but it's not, you know, really super crisp. Okay. Now let's put color. Now the color is going to come from the file we made in Mudbox. So the color should be in our render data, shaders, stomach, demo, and there's the color. Okay, and let's render that. So this is what I was trying to show you on my courses, where that adding just the color, this is what you see. And now let's go again to the shader, and this time we'll go here to the displacement, and we'll get the output, go to the displacement material, again use that checkerboard to get to the file. The file will be the one we made, be this displace. Again, this is the text. The .tx is the one that Arnold made from the original EXR file. I can't remember if I kept this one or not, so I don't know. So you can see the, the texture adding the difference there. Let's keep that. So I got to make it. That's without any color. That's with just the color. That's with just the color, so we don't need that one. That's just the color again, so we don't need that one. So texture and color, color only, light only. Okay, now let's add the final one, which see if we can get these vessels a little more pronounced. So I'll go to the go back to the shader again, and this time I'm going to scroll down looking for the geometry. Inside the geometry, I'm going to look for the bump mapping, and try to get that file that we used before, or that we saved out of Mudbox. This should be the red arteries by themselves. Artery bump. I don't know if you can see that. There's the arteries there. And now if we add that, so you can already see where the arteries have gotten quite significant. Now the problem I have now, if you remember, we increased the opacity of the artery in Mudbox to 1. So this is the arteries at their full saturation of color. Let's see if I can find the bump. So this is the bump. And let me bring in the hypershade so you can kind of see all this a little bit. So if we go to the stomach here and we look at its collection, okay, you can see here's the bump, here's the file. This is the placement node, which is literally saying where to put it and how much to repeat that. This is the color node and its placement, and we still have this is the displacement node. Remember, if we click this input and output connections, we can see there's that displacement shader we put on. Now what I want to do is I want to make that bump reduce its impact. So I'm going to take, I'm sorry, not the filter, the bump depth, and I'm going to turn it down. Now if you go negative, all you're going to do is literally make it negative. So right now it was at 1. Let's go, just for the sake of argument, to half of that, meaning 0.5. Now if we render now, I'll keep this one, render. And you see we get some of that raised surface, but nowhere near as kind of artificial. And again, this was kind of a quick render, so you might find yourself being able to control this a little bit better. So if we compare this, here's a render of 1, here's a render of 0.5. No bump at all, no displacement at all, and no shader at all, or default shader. Okay, so that's the lesson on how to use Mudbox to create a to create 3 files that can be used, one for displacement map, one for a bump map, and one for the color.